Some years ago at Fountain, a brother shared how he got saved. He said he went to the meeting to see a girl. But at that meeting, he encountered God. I don't know why you're here this morning, but it's my prayer that by the end of the service, you will have encountered God. For that is what really matters. It's what brings about real change when you encounter God. We see this in the experience of Jacob at a place he called Peniel. Face of God. It's where Jacob met God. As we examine the account in Genesis 32, let's remember 4 key words. One is conflict. One is challenge. One is confession. Finally, change. But first of all, the conflict. We note about this conflict 3 important things. Number 1, an individual focus. Jacob is all by himself. And that's where God comes to him. Now, God loves the family. He puts it lonely in families. But at certain points in our lives, certain seasons, God wants us alone. But you see, on a matter of salvation, you stand by yourself. When you face judgment, you stand by yourself. You can't hide behind parents and brethren and friends. It's you and God alone. Notice in Luke 19, verse 5, with Zacchaeus. There's a crowd around, but the Lord sees the one man in the tree. Listen, beloved, we cannot hide from God. Wherever you are, God sees you. God has a word for you. On Damascus Road, God spoke to Saul. Others heard a noise, but didn't get the message. Why? It was a message for Saul. This morning, I want to say to each one here, God has a word for you. Not the person next to you, but just you. Whatever guy, whenever the word is preached on a Sunday morning, you come to the preacher. Preacher, it fit them. It fit them. You didn't go this morning. So of course, as they came, it rained, church empty except for the one man. Preacher preach as usual. Preacher, it fit them, but they didn't come to hear you. The word is for you. It's individual. Jacob alone. Secondly, it was initiated by God. It says a man came and wrestled with Jacob. The man came to Jacob. You see, beloved, God has a mission to seek and to save what is lost. That God is seeking you. And perhaps whatever voice you heard this morning that made you come here was God's voice. Because God is looking for you. In that parable of the Good Samaritan, Samaritan came where the man was. He came to the spot where the man was. A picture of God coming to us in our need. You see, beloved, God's Spirit strives with us, wrestles with us to bring us to Himself. What do we do in unbelief? Resist. The time will come when you won't strive anymore. So if right now God is speaking to your heart in some way about responding to the gospel, don't put it off. For a time may come when you won't hear the voice anymore. But it's God who initiates everything. The man came to Jacob. Thirdly, we see in the account, injury for Jacob. Jacob resists and resists. So the man touches his thigh and it's dislocated. That forced him to hold on. He understood there's a power greater than himself. If I ask you for a blessing, I'm saved by that. You're greater than I am. So he recognized a greater power. And in his injury, he held on for a blessing. I don't understand every reason for suffering, beloved. But one thing I know, it helps to keep us on the right path. Here's what the psalmist says, Psalm 119:67. Before the afflicted, I went astray, but now I have kept thy statutes. Verse 71. It is good for me that I've been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. So sometimes it takes affliction. It takes hardship to bring us to our knees, to understand that we need God. The king called Manasseh, who did all sorts of evil, and when he was captured, brought low, Manasseh cried to God. So if right now you're in a situation, in a season that you feel weak, give God thanks for that. Because that reminds you, you don't have the answer in yourself. And you are forced to cry to God. Paul says, when I'm weak, then am I strong, because I cry out to God. So that's the conflict that brought Jacob to a point of reaching out for a blessing from God. The second key word is challenge. Now, Jacob wants something. In fact, seems he always wants something. He wants a blessing. The man says, okay, you want a blessing? What is your name? Now, the way God works with us, beloved, is this. He asks us questions to which he knows the answer. So we ask the question to get us to focus. He says to Adam, Adam, where are you? You think God knew what Adam was? It was for Adam to stop and check himself. Adam, where are you? You have moved away from where you should be. That is what we tend to do, beloved. Like sheep, we go astray. When God says, where are you? That you might stop and check yourself. Then God says to Cain, where's Abel, your brother? You think God didn't know where Abel was? It's to make Cain stop and think, what have you done, Cain, to kill your brother? So it's a question from God to make Cain stop and think. In 1 Kings 19, he says to Elijah, what are you doing here? You think God didn't know? Let us run away from Jezebel. Run away in fear. And God says, why are you here? Why have you run away? So questions are meant to challenge us. So God asks Jacob, what is your name? For him to stop and check himself. For the name Jacob meant supplanter, it meant trickster, it meant conman, it meant cook. Last week, I think it was, talk about the cooking man. Well, that was Jacob. Cook, 100%. You remember the time when Esau came home hungry, wanted some soup? Jacob says, I want your boy right for that. And later on, he put on the goat skin go and get Esau's blessing. So the man was a crook 100%. And God is saying to Jacob, you must check yourself. What's your name? Now, generally, we know the names of other people. So the Pharisee, as he prayed in Luke 18:11, I'm not like the other people. Extortioners, unjust, adulterers, tax collectors. You see, he could not see himself as being proud, self-righteous, and blind, but he saw everything else about other people. God is in us this morning, beloved. Look at nobody else. Look at yourself and tell me what is your name. That's a challenge for us today, to examine ourselves and see exactly where we are with God. So Jacob was challenged, what's your name? Verse 27, it's the confession. My name is Jacob. He was thereby confessing his true condition. I'm a con man, I'm a crook. But you know what? That's the first step towards blessing. Proverbs 28:13. If you cover your sin, you are not going to prosper. If you confess and forsake, you obtain mercy. So Jacob confesses. And if you want to make progress, beloved, we have to confess. And God knows us inside out. He knows all we have done. Where we went last night, what we're thinking now. He knows everything about us. So it makes sense to be honest with God. Now, in the parable of the Pharisee and the publican confesses to be a sinner. And that's important. For the word sinner is all inclusive. No exemptions to that. Brother once shared about a crusade somewhere in the States. And the preacher, he spoke on premarital sex, on alcohol abuse, and drug addiction. Somebody then said, he ain't talking to me. I ain't doing those things. You see, if I just keep listing all the sins, you might say, that is not mine. But all of us have sinned and come short of God's glory. Whatever it is, you might say, I'm not doing that. You are sinning before God. And so when we can admit that's who we are, then we are on the right road, the road towards blessing. Some years ago in St. Lucia, there were persons who set fire to a church, I think. And they were checking out to see if they were pyromaniacs. You know, why they did this? I don't know what they were, but I'm sure of one thing. They were sinners. And it's because of sin that Christ came. He came to redeem. He came to save. So if you're here this morning and you know you're a sinner, you're in the right place. The Savior is here and is ready and willing to save. But you got to admit, you got to confess as Jacob did, I'm a sinner. And the fourth thing that happened, there was a change. Once he confessed, a world opened up for Jacob. He got a new name. No longer Jacob, but Israel, which can mean two things. He who strives with God, or better still, God rules. Right? Saying to us in a way that Jacob is now under new management, under the rule of God. A different dispensation, you might say. God is now in charge of his life. And when you come to Christ, you get a new name. Things are different. I've mentioned before that 1 Corinthians 6, 9 to 11, where it lists some people who don't inherit God's kingdom: fornicators, adulterers, homosexuals, thieves, what have you. Then it says, such were some of you, that's past tense. But now you are washed, you are justified, you are sanctified, you are different. You are now God's children. When you come to Christ, you get a new name. Doesn't matter what we used to call you in the village. You are now a child of God. Your name is changed. Jacob is now Israel. It's what happens when you encounter God. A new name. He got a new start. Verse 31. The sun rose upon him. I don't know about you, but there's something special to me about a sunrise. You look out from the window where I live and you see the sun over there. It's like a new day, a new start, new hope. The sun rose on him. You see, life starts anew when you encounter God. Things are different. Passover was supposed to mark a new calendar for Israel. When God does something new in our lives, a new start. The old has passed away, and behold, all things have become new. The sun rose on Jacob, and he limped upon his thigh. He got a new walk. It was distinctive. In other words, you could know by the walk that was Jacob. It wasn't a normal walk anymore. He was limping. He was different. And has listened to a call to be different. That when you trust God, you are different from the people around you in a positive way. As the old song says, the things I used to do, I will do them. It's a great change. Since was born. And we need that today in St. Vincent. To see Christians walking differently. So in the change that Jesus really brings about. But also the walk was dependent. He was limping. He had to, in a sense, lean. And you see, as Christians, we depend on God for the strength we need. We can't live for God in our own strength. But through Christ, we can do all things. And that's how all of us are able to survive as Christians. We walk depending on the Lord. That's the key to success as Christians, the dependent walk. So as I close, let me say to us again, whatever reason it is that you came here this morning, you need to encounter God. That makes all the difference in the world. At Peniel, face of God, Jacob experienced a conflict. The man came to wrestle with Jacob. So Jacob by himself. God comes to us as individuals. He wants you and you alone, not the person next to you. At Peniel, there was a challenge to Jacob and to us. What is your name? Who are you really at the core? Recognize who you are. All of us are sinners before God. Then there's a confession. My name is Jacob. I'm a crook. I'm a sinner. I am crying for mercy as a sinner. We do that, the change will come. The new name, the new start, the new walk. It is God who will do a new thing for us, beloved. You see, man under the sun says, the crooked cannot be made straight. He says, your life is so messed up, you can't come back. You mess up, you gone through. God says, no. The crooked can be made straight. It is God who does that. And this morning, whoever you are, whatever you have done, No matter how you have messed up, I want to believe this morning that God can straighten you out, can give you a new life, a brand new start. You got to come to him.